remember the things you did when you were younger that you promised yourself you would never do again? The clothes that you said you'd never wear, the music you promised you'd never be into, the trends that definitely were not your vibe. So many of us think things like, I would never do that. I'm never going to date that person. I'll never try that. And then, well, we do, right? Yeah, that happens with simple things like music preferences and food, but it also happens in areas of our lives that are a bit more complicated. I'm talking about substances that we put in our bodies, words that we use, people we're influenced by, things that we do with our bodies, ways that we treat parents and other relationships. The list goes on and on and on. But if we're honest with ourselves, the person we thought we'd never be is exactly who we're becoming. And here we are in the reality and the aftermath of all the things that we said we'd never do. Now, we've all faced the same questions once we get here. What do I do now? Some of us keep making the same poor decisions, and it's almost like we just give up and we just keep giving in to whatever the thing is for us. And we think, well, this is just who I am now. This is what I do, and I've already made the bad decision, so why turn back? Others do our best to hide it. Maybe it's a habit or a boundary that we keep crossing, and instead of dealing with it, we're just covering it up. Yeah, we feel guilty, but we just decide not to deal with it. Or maybe we do something we never thought we would do, but we're confident we won't do it again. We decide we won't end up in that place, we won't give in to that temptation, we won't try that thing ever again, and then somehow we do. Once we do, it feels like we're right back down to where we started. We get stuck, right where we messed up. We give in to temptation, and now the temptation has become a pattern that we stay in. There are things that we find ourselves giving into over and over and over again. Now here's what I know for sure. Messing up, giving in to temptation can be one of the quickest ways we convince ourselves to give up on our belief in and relationship with God. We're 100% for sure going to mess up. So now what? The last few weeks we've been talking about Jesus, the man who Christians believe was God in a human body, faced temptation. And yeah, he faced the same pressures we do to give in to all sorts of different temptations. Now, he never gave in to the temptation that he faced, but he does know what it feels like to be tempted. And he does have something to say about how we can move forward after we give in. One of Jesus' best friends was named John, and he recorded Jesus' life in a document that we call the Gospel of John. So check out what John wrote down. John said, "For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." John 3, verse 17. John writes that Jesus did not come to the earth to condemn us. To condemn simply means to give up on us, right? Basically, it's another way to say it's over for us. But Jesus didn't come to give up on us. When we give in to temptation, he didn't come so that we'd be clear just how mad God is at us for our mess ups and for how much trouble we're in or all the ways that we failed. Jesus came to save us from the punishment that we deserve for all the ways we've messed up. He came to save us from our tendency to stay where we gave in and instead show us another way to experience life. So what does that really mean for us? Well, here's the good news. If you don't catch anything else that I've said today, I want you to remember this. When you give in, you can start again. God is a God of second chances. We don't have to stay stuck where we messed up. We don't have to believe the lies that tell us that we'll only ever be the results of those bad decisions that we made. Jesus wants to show us that when we think it's over, it's not. When we think we've given in too many times or given up too many times, he hasn't given up on us. Now, part of following Jesus is believing that he's the only one who can say, "You're condemned." And since he's perfect, he's the only one qualified to call us condemned or to give up on us. But Jesus does the exact opposite. He says, we're not condemned. He says the only one with the authority to tell you what's true about you, the only one who could have given up on you, has decided to give you a fresh start. So what does it look like to move forward and to start over again? Well, before Jesus walked the earth, one of his ancestors named David wrote something that gives us the words we so deeply need when we mess up. Now, David was a guy who had some really big screw-ups, but he also had really big faith in God and that God would forgive and save people from condemnation. Look at David's approach when he needed to start again. Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Psalm 51:10. Now, David was writing that in response to one of the biggest mess ups he ever made in his life. He was living in the middle of the results of a temptation that he had given into. He slept with a married woman, had her husband killed. Yeesh. Talk about a mess up, right? Regardless of what your story looks like, his approach can apply to all of our lives. See, David chose not to give up. He chose to start again. You and I can do the same thing. When we give in, we can start again by following David's steps. We ask for a pure heart. Now, I realize that's kind of old school language, but we know what that looks like. We want a clean conscience, and we want the guilt to be gone, right? David was asking God for the same thing, so we should too. And for some of us, that might mean that we need to ask for forgiveness. We might need to confess to God and to someone that we trust. We might need to invite someone in to help us head in a different direction. We might even need to experience the consequences, unfortunately. But no matter what's ahead, we can be confident that when we ask God for a pure heart and we take steps we need to deal with that, He will give us the pure heart that we ask for. The second thing is live with a steadfast spirit. Right? That's more old school language, but David is asking for help making good decisions and to have a solid way to move forward. Steadfast is another way of saying solid or committed. David is asking God to give him a way to stay focused on what God says is best. We can do the same thing. Once we've asked for a pure heart, we're on the road to a new way of life, and then we ask God to keep us focused on making good decisions moving forward. We have to decide to make change and to commit to continuing in the things necessary to keep moving towards what we know is best. Okay, so here's the thing about all of us. God is the only one who can do these things. If you and I try to keep our own hearts pure and make consistently solid decisions on our own, we fail. We can't just try hard. We have to stay focused on what God says is best. We need Jesus' example of how to love God, ourselves, and others to turn from our tendency to make bad decisions and our habit of staying in what we give into. The good news is that's exactly what God promised He'd do for us. That's exactly why He came. So for some of us, that means we have to choose to believe that that's true in the first place. You might be hearing all of this and you're thinking, yeah, a fresh start is really what I need. But you cannot find the way out of the place you're stuck in on your own. If that's you, then that's exactly what God wants for you, is to find your way out. Regardless of what you've done or how you feel stuck, remember, when you give in, you can start over. That's the good news about Jesus. He didn't come to tell us we were failures. He came to show us how to live life well. He came to show us that even though we're imperfect, because of Him, we can be confident that we can get to be with a perfect God forever. And even now, we can be confident that God always loves us and that our mess-ups don't define us. If you're looking for a fresh start, talk to your small group leader about how you can start again.